This is the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast, helping you run your restaurant better.
Welcome back to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. We thank you guys for joining us each and every week. As I say often, I know you guys have got hundreds, thousands, and it feels like thousands every day get produced. But I know that there's lots of different ways that you guys can spend your time and energy, and we really appreciate you guys spending some time with us each and every time we post one of these. We love hearing the feedback, and I know I say this often for our longtime listeners. I love hearing the feedback. I love when you guys recommend different guests to us and let us know some different people that you think are doing some unique things in the restaurant industry. And today is no exception. This actually came as a recommendation from one of my industry colleagues that's also been on the show. But our guest today is Steve Simoni from Bebot. How's it going today, Steve?
It's going really well. It's a nice day in New York City here.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's starting, springtime. It's not getting too hot yet, and have you guys gotten through the rainy period yet? Because I know that's one of the other things around springtime in New York that I think you guys seem to get a lot of rain.
Yeah, I think we're just coming through it. The end of April was a lot of downpours.
Got ya. Very cool. Well, Steve came to us by way of a referral from, like I said, a previous guest, Jordan Thaler. I know, Steve, you and Jordan know each other, and you and I have talked a little bit about our relationship with Mr. Thaler. But why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who Steve is, where Steve came from, and then we'll talk a little bit about the company that you get to run over there at Bebot.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm a restaurant tech CEO here in New York City. Before, I wasn't always this. I don't come from the restaurant industry. I started my career in the U.S. Navy right out of college. I was a nuclear engineer for the Navy, where I worked on submarines and aircraft carriers and the equipment that we would put in the reactor compartment.
I'm say when you shared that with me when I got my initial introduction with you before we scheduled some time on the podcast, I was like, what? How in the world do you get from nuclear reactors and submarines to restaurant technology and really kind of what you guys are doing? And it was a pretty intriguing story to me. So I'm sure our listeners would love to hear about that. But I'm sure at the same time, you and I chatted about it, that there's probably some stories that you can't quite tell about what you got to experience when you were in the U.S. Navy, and so maybe over beer one time some of our listeners might be able to hit you up about that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's in many ways it's very similar. We were responsible at this place called Naval Reactors, where I worked to support the fleet and make sure that they had all the safety manuals were up to date, all the sailors were trained, and that they all knew how to operate the reactor safely. And so I worked at this headquarters. And now that I run a restaurant technology company, it's just a different fleet now. We like to joke that we support the fleet of restaurants. And so they have there's a lot of similarities though. Like, restaurants are around the clock operations, and they are, doing something very critical and serving their guests, and they need their systems and their technology to work at all times, similar to a submarine needing to work at all times. So it's surprisingly, I could shock you with many stories, but there are a lot of similarities to the Navy in this job.
That's really funny. I mean, it's really funny you say that. And when I think about a nuclear reactor, I'm guessing that somebody doesn't get the right cocktail showing up at their table. It's probably not nearly as critical as the as the submarine not operating, or the button not working properly. But I love the analogy of the fact that it is a mission critical thing to what you're serving.
You haven't seen some angry New Yorkers not getting the right cocktail.
Yeah, I guess there's that. I'm sure there's lots of YouTube videos out there about angry people not getting their food. But why don't you talk a little bit about, you talked a little bit about the similarities, but why don't you educate people about where Bebot came from? You told me a cool story and showed me a cool YouTube video about Bebot in its inception, because I think it may tie some people to understand how those things tie together in a more tangible way, I guess, at the inception, and then we can talk about where it's pivoted to, as all great businesses have in the world of technology.
Yeah, so we as nuclear and electrical engineers, my co-founders, we all met in the Navy. We really just were. We don't really have any preconceived notions about how hospitality or restaurants should work. We go to restaurants and eat at them, but really we're just technologists and, like I said, former naval officers. We started out Bbot when we were living in San Francisco as a ceiling-based robotics company. So we'd think of like a sushi conveyor belt that you've seen at those sushi restaurants, but putting that on the ceiling and then having it drop like cocktails from the ceiling to your table is what the original product we invented was. And that was called Bbot. And we launched that in a nightclub in Cincinnati. And that was really that was the business. There was no investors. It was just a bunch of robotics and engineers like us just building this thing. And that was really where we got our start.
That's really cool. So I did actually, before we pivot to kind of where you guys have as a business converted, some of the tech and done some different unique things. I did actually just see an article yesterday about a fully digital robotics restaurant. I don't know what I don't know, trade publication it was. Did you have anything to do with that? And was that are you even aware of it? I mean, the video that I watched, they fully made a hamburger by a robot. They wrapped the hamburger by a robot, and then after they wrapped the hamburger by a robot, it got delivered to the customer's table by a robot. And quite frankly, as I was watching this video, all I could think about was you and this whole nuclear conversation, and then the video that you showed me about the cocktails from that original bar in Cincinnati. But did you catch that article, and are you aware of what those guys are doing? Are you involved at all?
I did know. I'm a robot enthusiast, so I usually see those articles, or someone sends them to me, and I love it. I think that so we do a similar system for the delivery portion. The production stuff was not robots that we made, but no, we're not involved in that particular project. Our project is actually made as a backfittable solution, so that anyone who has an existing restaurant can backfit it into their restaurant, and still possible today. So anyone who likes that video, who wants that system but wants it for a fraction of the cost, you can email me.
I love that. Well, you know what? I will post a link to the original video of the bar, just because I was blown away with what Steve and his team of engineers were able to do, and how that service model may pivot. And we'll probably get into that conversation. But you guys have, I don't say you've had to, but you guys have chosen to pivot off of just a robotics company and have done some really cool stuff as it relates to restaurant tech and solving tangible restaurant technology issues as it relates to ordering and paying at the table. So why don't you talk a little bit about what the pivots look like, and what you guys do now as Bbot, more so than just the robotics company?
Yeah. So the creation and launch of the robot kind of inadvertently led us into a collision course with the modern day point of sale industry. So part of the robot experience that we invented and launched in 2018 was that to get the robot to your table, you scanned a QR code and ordered at your table and paid. And that's then how the bartender knew what drink to make and what drink to put in the robot, and the robot knew where to go. It was all based on that location QR code at the table. And just so happened that the system was working really well there. And this bar owner in Brooklyn said, "Can I have all of the QR code ordering part, but without the robots?" And that was like first we were like, "Oh man, we just built all these things," but then the light bulb kind of went off. The light bulb went off. That was like, "Oh, that seems very scalable, and seems like it's solving a problem for this guy," because he had a really crowded bar on the water in Brooklyn, and he was just like, "Yeah, I need to get people away from the bartenders and at their table ordering." And so it was just solving his problem. And we didn't really know much about the industry. So we were like, I wonder if other people have this problem. So I started, going door to door from there and just trying to see if people wanted just the QR code part.
Mm-hmm. I'd say that's such an interesting itch to scratch, I guess. And again, I mean, I know I alluded to Tim Ferriss, and he would talk about he often will talk about the whole idea of some of the best entrepreneurs are those people that are scratching an itch that they even had within the industry or within a product. I'm sure that there's been a million different learnings as you guys kind of went down that path, and maybe ignorance was bliss as to what the hospitality industry actually looked like, and how challenging that might be with existing point of sale systems to the idea of guests, and your angry guy that didn't get his right drink at the bar in New York City. So um, you know talk to me a little bit about how that started. So you talked about this bar. I love the story of this bartender, this restaurant owner, this bar owner in Brooklyn that had a need, and you guys said, oh, this shouldn't be that hard. We build freaking robots. But now you have to scale that down to, it's pretty simple to get a gin and tonic to somebody, but I know just because this is the industry I've grown up in and have been doing this for a really long time, there's a significant amount of complexity as it relates to what it takes to build an ordering and payment system within the ecosystem of restaurant technology. Is that
Yeah.
a fair thing to say that says it wasn't a linear line that says, oh yeah, we just write some tech and everything just works, right?
No, it's about as hard, and I no joke, it's about as hard as building a nuclear reactor, like a safe one. Ordering software is the central nervous system of a restaurant, no matter what kind of ordering it is, and it is very difficult to build.
Yep, and so tell me about those learnings, because I mean, again, I think from the guest perspective, you've got to be able to get them to be able to order. I mean, the thing that I say oftentimes when we're dealing with kiosks or guest ordering systems, especially a couple of years ago when it was less prevalent, is it's hard. People want things the way that they want them, and it's really easy to tell somebody that I want a cheeseburger with no with no tomatoes, extra pickles, put the mayo on the side. That's a very simple thing to do with your voice, but it's not necessarily as easy to do that on an app, on a smartphone, with potentially not great internet connectivity, not great connectivity to the point of sale system where your food delivery mechanism needs to be, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about kind of, I guess, both those learnings and kind of what that process was for you guys. How did you guys get the product development? How did you guys get to a place where you guys were iterating on a regular basis? Because you guys have got some really cool tech at this point that has really gone through a lot of those different paces. What did that look like? Did you guys start at that bar and then did you guys just get drunk every day watching, all of the engineers are hanging out, watching what's going on and watching what guests are looking at? Or, how did that feedback cycle come? And then, what were the next steps beyond kind of the initial guy?
The insights actually came well even before the robot. In 2017, when we were like, how do we get these robots to the table? We were like, oh, we need a website for ordering. And at the time, Luke, who's like my good friend and business partner, he and I were so tired of downloading people's apps, because we were living in San Francisco. And if you're in San Francisco, everyone's like, oh, you got to download my new app or try my new app. And like, we were like, I hate these apps, and no one's going to download our app if we make one. So we originally were just like, our general premise in 2017, I think we kind of led the way in the industry, because a lot of have followed us now, is no app, no sign up. That's the first key for the guests. Like, it has to be so frictionless. They shouldn't have to give you your name. Like, you shouldn't have to sign up for an account to order a beer. So that was like really the key original premise that has stuck with us for 4 years now. No app, no sign up. That right there helps a lot. So like that way, when a server comes by and says, oh, you just go to the site, you don't even need to give any personal information, just order what you want. It gives the staff a lot of confidence when they don't have to beg someone to download the app. So like, that's like the general original, like, key secret premise of the whole thing to make it work.
I love that. Well, because when you're ordering that same beer, you're not giving somebody your name, you're not giving somebody your phone number, you're not texting something. I mean, you just tell them, hey, I need a Bud Light, draft. Like, you're not having to go through this whole process, nor are you having to download anything on your phone. So I love that idea.
Like, for example, like, here's a good example.
Take me to the next step beyond that then. Okay.
Well, we take this to the extreme in many cases too. Like, I was just at Shake Shack the other day ordering on their kiosk, and it asked me for my name at the end, and I had no idea why. Like, they don't need that. Like, when I order from a server at a typical bar, like, it's not like the server's like, what's your name? Like they just,
Yeah.
they'll just take your. So we don't even we leave it up to the restaurant, of course, but we recommend you don't even have to ask the guest for anything. Just let them order. And
Uh-huh.
and that's how we have the most frictionless. There's the least form fields to fill out. It's the fastest way to get your drink. And we really do obsess over every single click to have the fewest number of clicks and fewest so to get the phone back in your pocket and back to partying with your friends.
I love that. I love that. So now take me down the path of, so love the idea of the inception. Don't make them download an app. Don't make them sign up. Don't create barriers to entry to ordering. But inherently, there's barriers to entry in ordering from the complexity of what the order looks like. So why don't you take me down that path, Steve? As you guys were going down this path, I don't want to say it's easier in a bar. It's definitely easier in the bar than it is with group orders at a table for 6, and everybody wants to pay separately, but they want to be on the same transaction. I mean, that's where the levels of complexities get in, especially when you start adding food in. But talk me through the iteration of understanding what it takes, because I'm guessing when you go out to have a drink, you're probably ordering one of two things. When you're going to Shake Shack, you probably are going to get one of two things at Shake Shack, and it's relatively easy, and you know how to do those things. But add that exponentially to the lady that hasn't used her smartphone in 3 years, to other than to call her grandkids, all the way to somebody that is digital native, and everywhere in between. It's got to be simple. You start with that barrier to entry and reducing that complexity, but then you've got the complexity of ordering food, ordering drinks, and getting them right, and then getting them to the kitchen and or the bar to make sure that the food gets done properly. So talk me through what you guys did to iterate as it relates to understanding menu complexity and ordering complexity.
Yeah. I mean, well, first, to make it, in the early days when our tech wasn't as robust, it was still new. We would target customers, and I guess with menus that were simpler, to make it easier on us and make it successful rollout. So we would, originally we would target a brewery. They don't have that many food items there, or the Brooklyn Barge, which is an outdoor venue with not a huge menu. So just originally from a sales strategy perspective, we were going for places with simpler menus, and then kind of working our way up over the years to more complex menus. Because with more complex menus, you need to add more features. You need to add, handling mods of mods, or having good search capability to search a full liquor list.
Yep.
These kind of things we needed to add over time. So in the early days, we just kind of tried to make it easier on ourselves by going to
picking the right customers. I love that.
Which is actually just an important entrepreneurship lesson, I think, for anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, is you got to be intentional about your original customers, or else they might push you in a direction you're not ready to go or don't want to go.
Yeah, so or they have you build a feature for the 1% of 1% because they've always had this feature in their restaurant and nobody else is ever going to use it. And so you spend all this time on product that's never going to be used. I love that idea.
That's particularly hard in ordering software, because as we get into this more and more and talk about this, even today on the podcast here, is just, everyone has a little bit of a different idea of what their ordering software should be capable of. So it is a very difficult, product roadmap to manage in that way.
Got ya. So you guys pick the right customers, and obviously as you guys have gotten more mature, you guys have added features and functionality to be able to do nested modifiers and mods on mods and all of those kind of things. Talk to me a little bit about the other barrier to entry oftentimes, which is the investment in the product that's already living within there. That's their kind of production system, their point of sale system. So you've got point of sale at the heart of the technology stack within the restaurant. And with that, those things are not the easiest to integrate with. And so talk to me a little bit about what that process looked like, because you've got to synchronize, and you and I know the levels of complexity, but why don't we talk to our listeners out there about what that looks like? Because at the end of the day, that has been oftentimes where things have failed. I remember some of the early days of some of the third-party delivery systems. They try to integrate back with the point of sale, and it was just, whether it was out of stocks or it was the items that they added on a special that didn't get onto the online ordering website. And there's so many different levels of complexity, and then much of the tech that's out there is older and hard to integrate with. So why don't you talk to me a little bit about what that next path took to integrating back to the core point of sale system, or did you guys just stay outside of the point of sale system and made them reconcile initially? And I know you guys are now integrated with it, but where did that start, and then how has it matured as you guys have gotten more and more customers out there?
Yeah, I mean, integrating with the point of sale is very important. It's, a major part of our next 2 years of product roadmap is just integrating with more point of sale systems. Like we're very focused on that. We are not going to be a point of sale company. We think that there are other things we can build, and we think that the point of sale companies are doing a great job. So we're certainly, integration is where it's at. And it is very difficult. We think we're getting better at it over time. We think we're one of the best. So the two integration points for those in the audience that are technical, there's two important points to integrate a system like Bbot to a point of sale, and that is menu sync. That means pulling the data out of the POS. And then the other one is order injection, injecting orders back into the POS. You need those two touch points. Not every point of sale even has the capabilities to receive prepaid orders from other systems. So those we won't be able to integrate with at all. But most point of sales are wising up to that they need those two touch points, menu sync and order injection APIs. And so, and it sounds okay. So those are the two touch points, but now doing that actually and making it robust and reliable is very hard. And it takes 3 nuclear engineers as founders to be able to even get close to doing it well. It is very difficult. And we spend a lot of time focused on it. And most of the engineers I hire are kind of focused on it at this point. And we keep hacking away at it. I think we'll probably be one of the best. I really do think we'll be one of the best companies at POS integrations when it's all said and done.
Well, and I think part of that, and I want to make sure that our listeners heard Steve when he said this, is they want to be the best, mobile ordering and mobile payment solution out there to integrate back with the point of sale. They're not necessarily looking. One of our previous guests is really looking to go down that path of mobile ordering and payment, and eventually replacing the point of sale. And I don't necessarily need to pit the two against each other, but I think to Steve's point, they really are focused on ensuring that they become the frictionless ordering and payment solution at the table. Is kind of their core, and aren't necessarily looking to take on the full complexity of the point of sale solutions that are out there. Is that a fair statement, Steve?
Yeah, and there's many reasons for it. Well, one, as entrepreneurs, I want to make something new, not reinvent something that already exists. So we have some other product plans besides rebuilding that feature stack. Like we have some cool. I won't announce them here, but some cool things we're going to do on the mobile side. And two, it's just like these, the point of sale companies. Well, one, I think just in general, they've done a good job. And like when you talk to restaurants, like, yeah, they might complain about their point of sale, but when you really talk to them about it, they're like, oh man, it does so many things though. In fact, think about all the other things besides ordering a point of sale system does. Like, that's just something
labor management.
Yeah, I would need $100 million of fresh capital to even just to start like rebuilding all of that. And that's just not where our focus will be, because we think we can add more value just being focused on this experience.
Got ya. So again, I wanted to make sure that those guys, that our listeners out there heard that not necessarily looking to take on the point of sale, looking to integrate. Those touch points on the menu side are really, really challenging. I alluded to one of them, which is out of stocks. You've got, oftentimes in legacy point of sale systems, you've got a Budweiser in the system 8 different times. What's available for ordering at the table, what's not available for ordering at the table. You've got menu pricing, you've got menu item availability. There's so many different levels of complexity. And so I love that you guys have challenged the status quo to be able to do that, because where I see others in this space in the past, they failed is they don't understand that level of complexity. And then the flip side is the ordering insertion into the point of sale. Where were the levels of complexity as it relates to that on the point of sale systems that you guys have actually done it to? Because we can all talk for days about what those things look like, but I'd love to have our listeners understand that, because even if they don't go with Bbot, a lot of people are like, oh, this I don't know why I didn't think of this idea like you guys have done. because it's so simple. And now that the pandemic has been here, nobody wants to grab a paper menu that everybody else has taken. They want to be able to do this. And so I hear from a lot of our customers, oh, I just want to do this. Like, I don't understand why it's so hard. Why don't you educate them a little bit about what that order insertion looks like? Because it is much harder, and trying to do it on your own or trying to figure it out on your own is a really, really challenging approach to business. And in general, I think.
Yeah, it's so hard. Here's the hardest part. I mean, there's a lot of things hard about it, but the hardest part is the real-time price checking. So I can't insert an order. Like, Bbot will have one price in it, and it should match the price of the items plus the tax in the point of sale at the time of insertion. So let's say like someone's building a cart to order. If you and I are at the table ordering, we've got like $15 in there, about to send it into the POS. But like someone changed the price of one of those items during that time, that order will fail that order because the price check algorithm will fail. So you've got to have a really real-time sync there to, like, if they update the price, then the price is quickly updated of the items in the cart. And there's just a lot of like edge cases around that price check. But it has to match, because or else it'll mess up all the reporting. The guest will get mad. But the guest will also get mad if their order doesn't go in. So there's a trade-off between having really equal accounting and having guest satisfaction be high. So managing that trade-off, we do that with some proprietary algorithms and things I can't exactly get into here. But we do specialize in making sure that order gets into the POS, and then, if the price doesn't exactly match, we'll reconcile it in some back-end accounting software behind the scenes.
I love that. One of the other things, Steve, that I know you guys do that's unique that I'd love for our listeners to hear about is the ability to have, a mobile cart, as you alluded to it, on your phone, but be able to send to multiple venues within the same property. I know I was talking with your business development team the other day about kind of the idea of whether it's the food halls, or you've got two different venues, but you've got a shared patio that, people might want to be able to, or, modern day food court. Talk to me a little bit about not just that complexity, but what that really does to offer the guests. More and more people are either creating virtual brands out the same kitchen that they're using, and or are operating within their brand. They might be operating 2 or 3 or 4 different restaurants from the same seating areas. Talk to me a little bit about what that looks like, and why the Bbot technology is so unique that it can solve some of these same challenges that so few can, and why it's such a unique proposition for those customers out there from a scalability perspective as they continue to increase their brand awareness and do different things within the restaurants that they have.
Yeah, if you have two brands, so the real magic is actually it's behind the scenes in the accounting software. But if you have two brands combined onto a same menu, other softwares can do that. That's not really what we're actually doing. We actually have two separate accounts for those brands that can merge into one menu experience. So then if you order, a hot dog from one and a pizza from the other brand, we're actually splitting the accounting on the back end to make sure that each account that's associated with each brand gets the right amount of money. So it's both, right? It's the guest having the one seamless transaction across multiple brands, but also it's the operators making sure the money in other competitors, the money is going into a single account. Our accounting software actually parses that out and sends it to the right accounts, which actually shares in the transaction fee then too. So you save money on top of that.
I love that. So, Steve, talk to me a little bit about what an onboarding. What would a typical onboarding? If I was a restaurateur and I'm sitting here listening to this and I'm going, you know what, this Bbot stuff sounds pretty awesome. I really want to move forward with these guys. What does it look like to onboard and get point of sale integration and get an account live and get guests not downloading an app, but going to the mobile website from, QR code or some other mechanism that you've driven them to be able to order? What does that guest experience look like from a restaurateur that's like, you know what, this is lame. Why haven't I already integrated with Bbot and done these things? Talk to me about what that process would look like, and share with me as a restaurateur what I should expect if I wanted to move forward with your guys' platform.
Yeah, if you were going to run it side by side, not integrated, it's a contract signed. You can be up and running in a week. If you want it integrated with the point of sale of one of the ones we integrate with, that's from contract signed to being up and running within about 3 weeks. Again, because we want to take our time with the menu sync and ensure that the price checking algorithms are working at your place.
I love that. I love that. And what's the lift from the restaurateur's perspective? You say that you guys have a whole bunch of different levels of menu sync and those kind of things. What does the owner have to do besides sign up for an account and and put some QR codes on the table? Walk me through that whole process, because oftentimes what I've heard from different listeners when they've come back is that was really awesome, but it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, or the opposite. Oh, that was so simple. And so they continue to ask, when I'm asking for feedback is how do we make it simple for them? What does that look like from their perspective? Because I think the simpler, no different than you talked about, the guests need to be simple. I think from the restaurateur's perspective, how simple do we make it for them? How simple does Bebot and your professional services team and your sales team make it for them? And what is the uplift from the owner's perspective? Because they've got a million things on their plate and don't necessarily need to be technologists. They want to trust you guys and their point of sale provider to be the technologists that are really solving guest problems that are needed.
Yeah, I think the main thing from ownership is, it's really not a technological thing. It's really about operational leadership and operational efficiency. I can basically talk to an owner for 5 minutes and I can suss out, because I've been doing this for years now, if they're going to be successful with a product like this or not. Because even with COVID, it's a mental shift in how you're giving a guest a new power, a power that the guest never had before. So you've got to, show leadership with your team on how that works. So it's really not a technical thing. It's just like, it's a mental thing for the restaurant. Yeah, it's really just all
management. Yeah. It's allowing control of your guest experience, down to the guest. Everybody says they want to be guest centric, but when the guest really does want to do something that you're not used to doing, what do you say? But when you put the technology in their hands and you allow for those things, you've got to be willing to fulfill that need, or you're not going to have a good guest experience. And I love that you would say that you can kind of tell by the initial phone call or the initial conversation you have with that restaurant owner. So what are those learnings then? Who are the types of people, you say pick the right customers, in the entrepreneurial journey to do them well. Who are those right type of customers that are going to be able to endear this change for our listeners that are out there? And what are some of those learnings that you've seen people fail to implement the change appropriately? What are those things that they should steer clear of?
So first, it takes to be able to do a system like this and allow the guests to, order when they want. You need strong leadership at the top. So if the ownership is not engaged with the management, which, you've been working in restaurants, Jeremy, for many years. If the ownership is like up in the clouds and likes the idea, but isn't actually engaged in selling it to the GMs, then it's dead on arrival. Because if the GMs don't, they're like, oh, the owner's trying to make me use this new thing. We don't do it like that here. Well, then it's over. So it does take it takes strong leadership at the top, selling it down to the GMs, the director of ops, and then from there to the front of the house staff. Because if the front of the house staff isn't introducing it and explaining how it works at the restaurant, then the guest will lose confidence. So it all starts right there from that owner. And so I usually, when I talk to owners thinking about something like this, I usually try to get a sense for, how they like to run their restaurant and how engaged they are with their managers.
I love that. Well, and the sad part, Steve, is I could probably pick Bebot or any other technology solution, because oftentimes, I mean, it's not technology for technology's sake. Every one of the guests that we've had on the podcast, they're solving real world problems for people that really had them, and understanding what that change management process looks like and the buy-in from the executive level, and that they're willing to make the changes operationally that they need to be able to, I guess, I don't know, be able to receive these changes and and define them and make sure that they're successful. I mean, I can go through hundreds of projects, to your point, that have failed because people haven't been willing to do this, and hundreds of projects that have succeeded because they were willing to do this. So I love that you really gave a blueprint, quite frankly, for all change within. I mean, I think you could even take it down to something as simple as a menu change. If you don't have buy-in from the staff, if you don't have buy-in from the leadership, if you don't have buy-in from the chef, you're not going to end up being successful, because at the end of the day, somewhere along that line, somebody's going to be a gatekeeper and say it's not working. Or, how many times have we been out to the restaurant, to the restaurants on places that they didn't take these changes appropriately, and they go, oh yeah, I don't know, this is their latest greatest thing that they're trying to get us to do, and it's never going to work, or guests are pissed off. I mean, I've heard that so many times because I'm an early adopter. It's not going to work when the server's like, yeah, don't use that, let me just take your credit card back to the, I mean, you've done it, right? It's happened for you. And I'm sure it's happened for lots of our guests out there. And so it's not going to work when the server or the staff is not bought into what it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah. Though the other thing, though, is, so then on the flip side, where tech can mess up is, so let's say they are bought in and it is a strong ownership group, and then so then you've got this great potential high fit customer as a tech company. You're excited. Then we need to hold up our part of the bargain by making sure it's reliable, so that when they say it's going to do what it's going to do to their staff, they can really mean it. And so it's a team effort. We have to do our part, and then the restaurant management has to do their part.
Well, and I love that that you guys have been so remarkably focused on ensuring that both the guest experience and the restaurant experience is pretty top notch, because I think that's part of where you guys have gotten to where you have over the last 4 or 5 years as you guys have been working on this tech. Where are you guys going, Steve? Where is the industry going? Why don't you spend just a couple of minutes talking about where you think the future of Bbot's going? Where do you think the future of technology is going? You guys have got some pretty audacious goals for what you guys want to be to the hospitality industry, and it's a pretty big industry. And you guys happen to be in one of the best cities in America, that for restaurants and for. You don't have your shortage of restaurants, nor do you have your shortage of opinions about how it's supposed to work in New York City. That's for darn sure. So tell me what your thoughts are on where it's at and where it's going for Bbot and for the state of the hospitality technology industry as a whole.
Yeah, if what we want to do and why I'm excited to come to work every day is to build an ecosystem of one-click integrations. So something, I come from a different software background than I don't come from restaurant tech, and this is one of the only industries where there's almost no one-click integrations. Meaning, like, if you're a restaurant owner and you have, let's just say you have, I don't know, I'll just name it Upserve or something. You have a point of sale, and you want to integrate with something and then a new salesperson from a new review site comes to you and says, "Oh, I want to work with your restaurant," and you're like, "Well, do you integrate with Upserve?" And then they're like, "Oh, no, not yet." That is something that most other industries and verticals have solved through self-service integration tools. Like a company like Zapier is a good example from another industry. But in the hospitality world, that's just not how it works. It's not how the business development part of it works. It's a very backwards, and we're fighting that fight. I'm gonna change this industry and make it so that if you have a product like Bbot, you have access to one-click integrations with any piece of restaurant software out there, and any new one. So if you wanted to start a new company, you're not going to have to talk to someone at my company to be able to integrate with Bbot. You're just going to be able to integrate with Bbot. You're not going to have to go through a business development gatekeeper.
I love that.
That's
I love that. Well, and I think that's probably why Jordan. Sorry, I was going to say I think that's probably why Jordan introduced us, because he hates that whole gatekeeper idea, and so do I, because I think it's ridiculous. You should be, it's not like when I'm using QuickBooks, I have to go call the QuickBooks rep and say, "Do you guys integrate with the?" They just give you an open API to talk to their system and allow you good tools. Same thing with the Facebooks and the Googles of the world. So, I mean, is that really where you think you're going to be able to get to with the hospitality industry? Is that you're going to have this universal way to be able to talk with these things for ordering and order management and payment?
Yes, and I think we can get there because mainly of a business model innovation. Probably the the primary secret of our company of how we're building it. So I won't reveal it.
That's
But yeah,
awesome, though.
I actually think that there's a way to do it that everyone just missed. And I think it's going to take about 3 more years, but we will get there to the point where, anyone, and the key is this, and this is the insight I had when I launched the Brooklyn Barge, our first customer after the robots, is no restaurant tech company at the time would really talk to me that much.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't big enough for them. And
Yep.
that is completely backwards with how technology and software works. Software shouldn't care how big you are. It doesn't care. And that's actually when I had the light bulb moment of what the business could become. And
well, and neither do the guests. The customers and or the restaurateurs don't care if there's a solution out there. They want to be able to capitalize on it to make their business better. And way too often in our industry, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I know the guys at Omnivore, took on a pretty audacious goal to be able to solve some portion of that. And to your point, they've had some level of success in certain areas and have had some opportunities in others. But I think it's ripe for disruption to what you shared earlier, because it is a longstanding problem, has been a longstanding problem for everybody that's in our industry, and ultimately the big people that lose are the restaurateurs and the guests, because they can't do what they need to do to be able to make their business better and to be able to make more money.
Yeah, I mean, even some of the secrets we've unlocked, I can just share, at a high level is, Omnivore is great. Actually, I do like that product. I think that it's a hard problem they're trying to solve, which it's just really hard what they're doing there. But even the way they architected that, I think you still have to, like, if you and I wanted to start a startup, we couldn't just use Omnivore. Like, you have to get agreement from a business development person there, and then you have to get an agreement. You have to get an agreement for like an Aloha to let you even install Omnivore onto that machine. So even though they have the general idea, they still are in the gatekeeper realm. But again, like, they started in an era where that had to be, it was like that. So there's some ways around that we're working on, but the ideal scenario is that a new business forming in the future should be able to access and integrate with pretty much any piece of restaurant tech software without having to talk to a business development person.
That like I said, those are some pretty audacious goals that you guys are trying to tackle. Steve, we're starting to get close to kind of our wrap up time. I try and keep these things in the 40 to 45 minute range, and you and I could talk for hours about the problems. But for our listeners out there that are looking to get engaged with your team, engaged with the Bbot technology, where would you have them go? What we talked about what they can expect and what the timeframes look like from an integration and a non-integrated perspective. But where would you send them to be able to check some stuff out, watch some videos, and get connected with one of your people to make sure that they can engage with the product and get it deployed to their restaurant group?
Yeah. So I just spent all this time saying it's going to be self-service, and now I'm going to say ours isn't yet. But
I love that.
But that's what we're building toward. You have to have a North Star, So anyways, yeah. So hit us up at, you can talk to sales@bbot.menu. You can go to our YouTube channel, watch YouTube videos. You can hit us on Instagram or Facebook at Meet Bbot. So those are all different places you can message us. We're also going to be at the Vegas Bar and Nightclub show at the end of June. So we'll have a booth at the Vegas show. Anyone who's going to be out there, come by. I'll probably be at the booth or walking around to check out the other companies. We'll certainly be there. Yeah, check out the competition. Actually, it's better yet, though. I don't even view any of them as competition. I view them as people I want to integrate with eventually with one-click integrations.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, those are all different ways to get in touch, or, even my email, steve@bbot.menu, if you want to riff about this vision of the future.
Awesome. Well, I will add all of this to the show notes. Steve, I very much appreciate not just what you guys have built from the robotics to your guys' digital ordering and payment solution, but really what you're trying to do to change the face of restaurant technology, because like I keep saying, it's a pretty audacious goal that you guys are trying to solve for. It's pretty incredible what you guys are trying to do. And I can't wait to see where it's at and where it goes, because I think it's I don't know. I would love a world where we didn't have to have all of these things, because I do think it's ridiculous. I think it's really silly that people can't get what they want and or need based on the fact that there's all these gatekeepers, and whether I paid the right amount of money, I did the right paperwork, I talked to the right person. It's like so ridiculous, especially in the world of technology. Technology should be advancing rather than having a bunch of people decide whether you can or can't make some things happen. So thank you for really trying to solve that problem, because I can't wait to see a world where those things are in a much better place.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Jeremy, for having me. And I guess this is my favorite topic. So anytime you want to talk about it, you know where to find me.
Awesome. To our listeners out there, guys, we know, like I said at the beginning, we know that you guys have got lots of choices. So we appreciate you guys spending some time with us each and every time we post one of these. Steve, thank you again. And to our listeners out there, guys, make it a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. Visit restauranttechnologyguys.com for tips, industry insights, and more to help you run your restaurant better.